The world had grown quiet, but not still. Events continued to unfold, but they no longer made sense. Disappearances persisted, not in clusters, not in patterns, just one by one. A diplomat in Oslo, a violinist in Vienna, a child in Halifax. Gone. No trace. No explanation. And yet, disasters were being prevented with eerie precision. A war that should have erupted in the Balkans dissolved overnight. A virus that threatened to cripple East Africa mutated into a harmless strain. A global financial collapse was narrowly avoided when a rogue algorithm self-erased. It wasn't coincidence. It was orchestration. But by whom? No one claimed responsibility. No one left a signature. No one demanded credit. The interventions were surgical, clean, silent. And then came the symbols. They appeared in places no one expected, on the walls of a collapsed monastery in Armenia, in the frost patterns on a window in Reykjavik, etched into the sand of a beach in Uruguay. Always the same. A fractured square, pulsing at its corners, empty at its center. People began dreaming of it. Children drew it, musicians composed around it. The symbols spread not through media, but through memory. And then came the pulse. Every 7 days it surged, not through sound, but through vibration. It was felt in temples, towers, and trenches. It disrupted electronics. It warped dreams. It made animals restless. It made people remember things they never lived. The pulse grew stronger, and with it, the silence deepened. Governments stopped speaking, religious leaders grew vague, scientists withdrew. The world was no longer trying to explain, it was trying to brace. And then came the geography. Lebanon to the north, Syria to the northeast, Jordan to the east, Egypt to the southwest, Gaza to the west. A square of silence, a perimeter of pressure, and in the center, nothing. Not ruins, not radiation, a crater. Pulsing with blue light, bright, blinding, impenetrable. No satellite could see inside. No drone returned, no human crossed the threshold. The land was sealed not by force, by memory. The biblical boundary had become a metaphysical wound. Cities that once thrived, Jerusalem, Haifa, Beersheba, were no longer referenced, not even as ruins. They were folded into lapses. The crater was not a location, it was a verdict. The crater was not a location, it was a verdict. And then came the dreams again. This time they were directional. People woke with coordinates, with visions of movement, with memories that didn't belong to them, and refugee camps near the perimeter. Displaced survivors described visions of a square hovering in light. In distant cities, children drew maps that led nowhere. In silence, a whisper spread. They're coming back. But from where? The pulse surged again. And then the terrain began to shimmer. Not visibly, edotetically. Satellites caught flickers, a ripple in the atmosphere, a distortion in the magnetic field. Analysts called it a glitch. But one frame showed something else, a symbol brief, geometric, familiar. The fractured square. Still, no one approached. No one dared. The crater remained sealed, but the perimeter began to shift. Not outward, inward. The pressure folded, the silence deepened. And then the light changed. It wasn't just blue anymore. It was layered blue within white, white within gold, a spectrum that defied physics, a brilliance that bent time. And then the structures began to form, not building a monument, just presence. They stood like sentinels, one facing Jordan, another Egypt, Syria and Gaza, and they aligned with frequencies not yet understood. Like the corners of a square, they marked the four corners. Their surfaces shimmered with inscriptions that no one could read. Yet everyone felt symbols pulsed faintly beneath their exteriors, some geometric, some organic, all vibrating with a rhythm that seemed older than language. Still, no one approached. No one dared. The pulse grew louder. It was no longer just a vibration. It was a memory, a reckoning. It moved through the bones of the earth and the marrow of those who listened. It made clocks stutter. It made tides pause. It made the air itself feel heavier, as if time were folding inward. And then the light came. It wasn't gentle. It wasn't warm. It was blinding. A brilliance so pure, so overwhelming that the air itself seemed to fracture. The ground shimmered, the sky bent. Those watching could not look directly. They shielded their eyes, not from fear, but from awe. From each door, figures stepped forward, slowly, deliberately. Not named, not explained, but unmistakably them. The ones who disappeared. They didn't speak. They didn't need to. Their presence was not announced, it was felt. Their silhouettes cut through the light like memory returning to form. They were clothed in garments that shimmered like woven light. Their faces serene, their movements precise. They walked as if gravity had been rewritten for them, neither floating nor stepping, but something in between. They stood in silence, surrounded by brilliance. Their faces were calm, their eyes held something ancient, something precise. They were not ghosts, they were not gods, they were architects. And behind them, the light shifted again. It folded inward, revealing glimpses of a city that had no streets, no walls, no center. It was made of thresholds, doorways that led to other doorways, each one humming with possibility. The structures were not built. They were remembered. They rose from the ground like echoes returning to their source. The pulse aligned. The four corners glowed. And then the vibration stopped. Not faded, stopped. As if the world had exhaled. Birdsong returned. Wind moved again, the sky settled into its shape, but the silence that followed was not emptiness, it was reverence. Those who watched from the perimeter, scientists, refugees, skeptics, believers, stood motionless. Some wept, some knelt, some simply stared, unable to name what they had seen. And in that breathless moment, the light bent once more. There, end of the vanished light. Chapter 10. The revelation there, the light fractured, the silence held, and memory returned. See you in book 2. We hope you felt the tremor, the truth, and the tension. Whether the story continues is up to you. Because revelation doesn't end. It invites.